What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and we're at GenCon, and now I'm here talking with Mage Hand Press. So we're going to talk a little bit about their Kickstarter that we got going on right now, but before we do that, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us who you are with the company.
So I'm Mike. I write and edit and own Mage Hand Press, and do a lot of the graphics. I wear a lot of hats. Small companies like us, we really love making those products, and we want to keep our fingers in as much things as possible. So today we're here to talk about our new book, which is actually on Kickstarter right now, and I've got a physical copy of it. It's Valda's Spire of Secrets. So if you're someone who plays 5e, you want this book. This is everything we've been working on for 5 years. It's 10 base classes, 150 subclasses, I think 130-something spells, feats, you name it. We made a book that is really just trying to be the player's handbook too. It's trying to be everything you want in a book so that you can kind of take your game to the next level and kind of rediscover why 5e is so cool. Because, one new base class in the entire 5e run so far, and we need more. Everybody needs more, and this is.
I don't think we're getting any more either official.
No,
so.
No.
And I mean, for people who don't know, a lot of this stuff in here started as like blog stuff that was for free that everybody had, and now it's been finalized and adjusted and play tested to end up here in this book. And what's the page count off the top of your head?
Yeah, pushing 400. We're at 384. And it is a real monster of a book. This has a lot of content. Top to bottom, it's not like, oh yeah, we got over 300 pages with a lot of fluff and, filling out the pages. 400 of solid content. It's a really impressive book when you get it in your hands. This thing is, you can't tell, it's thick.
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of stuff. We don't have a ton of time, but let's talk about, you said you have a new race in here you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we've actually got 5 new races. The one I love showing off is called the Geppetton. You can probably see here, there's a little teddy bear with a sword. So it's a race of living toys, and you can play as, Geppetton implies Geppetto, so you can play as a Pinocchio kind of marionette. They're great dancers and have strings so they can throw their light weapons out to reach. There's the plushies, which are stuffed with fluff. They're these teddy bears, and you could play like a little teddy owl bear if you want. It'll be great. And the bisque, which are porcelain dolls, and they're terrifying, and you get intimidation proficiency because oh man, it's very scary. This is if you want to get a sense of really changing up how you play, you can play a teddy bear. Sure. Who doesn't want to do that?
And you said you have 10 new base classes, and just for people who we mean a level 1 to 20 entirely new class, not to be confused with the other 13 that we have, brand new. And you said you have a witch class, which is something so many of you have been asking for. And what I want to talk about here is what makes your witch different from a wizard, a sorcerer, or a warlock?
So that's a really good question. When you're introducing someone to D&D and talking to them about the spellcasters, you normally say, well, where does your magic come from? A warlock makes a pact, a wizard does book learning. The witch is cursed, and at first level you get to select a curse off of a list. Maybe you were burned, or maybe you've been rendered hideous by some magic, or maybe you're haunted, or your soul is sort of divorced from you and you're hollow. And that gives you some positive benefit and really kind of sets your story going. Your curse gives you this magic, this evil magic that you can twist out on other people. The idea is that we've kind of created a class that's all about debuff, just one kind of roll, and once we knew that was what we were doing, everything is centered around that. You get a series of hexes, you get a familiar that once your enemy is weakened with a hex, you can go in with your familiar and deal a killing blow. The spellcasting is, of course, very debuff-oriented. And then your subclasses allow you to choose, like, a witch's craft. So you can choose, red magic or green magic, or you could be a tea magic witch.
Okay, very nice.
Our Technicolor one is for people who want to play the Disney princesses as much as possible with pets.
So you have, so we don't have to be, obviously we talked a little bit about like your spooky evil witch, but you could kind of be more of a, sounds more possibly benevolent?
Yeah, exactly. So we've been playtesting these classes and elements of this book for about 5 years now, and improving it as time has gone on. People who play witches are usually an interesting breed because they often go, well, yeah, but I want to have lots of pets, and they're playing, so the type of characters they typically bring to the table sometimes they hew closer to Disney, they hew closer to Pixar. So we accommodated that, and the class does allow you to do that. You get a pet, you get a familiar from level 2, and it's phenomenal. People have like a really deep connection to those characters, so we wanted to make it, more accessible. And one of them is just a witch that does tea ceremonies. So, every one of our base classes comes with 8 subclasses. So this book actually has 150 subclasses in it. That sounds a little less crazy when you realize 80 of those belong to our core classes, and the rest are the other classes in the player's handbook.
So let's talk about a subclass for one that for people who know the base subclass or base classes rather from 5e. Let's talk about a subclass for one of those.
Yeah, so our we have a mix of serious ones and funny ones. They're all extremely mechanically balanced, but sometimes we think that meme builds are the best builds. So one of our favorites is called a muscle wizard, which, contrary to its name, is a barbarian who probably went to Wizarding University on like a football scholarship,
Sure.
Or they just picked up a book and decided, now I'm a wizard. I'm just like real strong. So that one has spells and cantrips, and they intimidate people into pretending like they're a wizard. It's fantastic. It's extraordinarily evocative, and I've actually played one. They're really, really fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that out. And like we said, there's a ton more of these subclasses for things that you already know, as well as, again, all the new base classes. Now, there's also kind of appendix in the back of the book is something a little bit different, a fun sort of game within a game. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, every good book needs a lot of appendices, and in this one of our stretch goals that we hit on this Kickstarter is Siege Ball. Siege Ball is a sport that you play within D&D. You use the combat rules, you use your existing characters, and you can just dive into Siege Ball for one session or a whole campaign. The game goes like this. There's 2 towers, and there's a ball, and you're trying to hit the ball into the other tower to knock it over. That's the entire game, and it's D&D, so maybe you're going to try to hit somebody else with your club and knock them over. Maybe there's an illegal kind of siege ball ring where everybody's playing with war hammers and swords, and it's super dangerous. It's an extraordinarily fun thing, and I'm so glad we've managed to squeeze it down, put it in an appendix, so it's just another option. It's another way to tell your story, and it feels really natural for D&D characters who are these broad. Colorful superhuman characters to just be like, yeah, now I'm playing professional sports. Let's hit a ball.
Sure, and again, like I've said this countless times, games within a games are some of my favorite things, some of the most memorable things you'll have in your campaign, and to have something that's been vetted out but still functions within the mechanics of 5e and isn't kind of just a throwaway thing, that's pretty cool.
And there's a little bit of design wizardry, a little bit of design magic, where sometimes you write something and it's not clear that just from the design, it's going to be incredible. Siege Ball is one of the most fun things you can play, period. And it's not obvious that would be the case. So if you're like on the fence, or maybe that you don't think that's for you because, well, you're not really into sports games, give it a try. It is so fun. And it's hard to, even when you're writing it, you don't know how, like, if it's going to pop off the table. Fun's an alchemy when you're a designer. And boy, this thing is fun.
And we said we had a bunch of new spells. About how many new spells do you know?
So I know it's north of 130, and
crazy.
which sounds like a lot, but there's new classes, and not all of them. And we're really buffing out stuff that feels like it should have been in the edition the whole time. And so one of my favorites is called Finger Guns. It's a cantrip where you go like this, and you go pew pew, and it does force damage. It's so good, and it actually interacts with our existing firearms rules. So if you have a subclass that uses firearms, or a class like the Gunslinger, which is in the book, that gets special maneuvers that you use when you shoot a gun, you can just use finger guns. You can go pew pew and do all your cool gunslinging stuff. It's extraordinarily fun. Another one I love is called Clue. Clue does a Scooby-Doo sort of thing where you cast it, and now you see all these colorful footprints and fingerprints, and you can track where people went, which places they touched, and it's really like a gift to the DM.
Sure.
Like, let us tell this story in a really engaging way.
Awesome. Is there anything, we still have like a minute left, so anything else? I think there's feats too?
Oh, yeah. Well, we have feats. We have starter feats, which are free things you can grab at first level. And then my favorite new addition, mechanically, is called aux levels, or auxiliary levels. They're 1-level classes that you can take, and just anywhere in your build after first level to just grab cool stuff. So there's one that just gives you an animal companion. There's one that gives you a magic sword that levels up with you. And yeah, so these are one of the most flexible, player empowering things we've ever come up with. And it feels so obvious. It's amazing that it hasn't been done by anyone else or in the core system. They're extraordinarily cool. And you have all of these options in addition to everything else we've brought out. So if you have a character you want to play, We're letting you play it, and and it's going to be completely supported. You're not fluffing stuff. You're not half doing it. We're going to give you something amazing.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Be sure I'll have a link in the description. Go check out the Kickstarter now, and
Go pledge. Pledge before it's over.